Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null, and I'd like to welcome you to the Gary Null Show. Our cameras go all over the world to bring you the issues that are important to your health and well-being. Well, today we are beginning a series called Wake Up and Get Healthy. I think you'll enjoy it. You'll see the real causes of illness and the real ways to solve that problem, whatever it may be. Arthritis, heart disease, depression, fibromyalgia, overweight, pain. Watch us now. We've got the answers.
Thank you.
We're here to share a very positive experience, to start a journey of healing. Let's see the hands of people who want to overcome the following: high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, keep those hands up. Overweight, depression, anxiety, keep the hands up. Arthritis, fibromyalgia, confusion. That's everybody, don't lie. Fatigue. Who's not got the energy they want here? For a lot of men, loss of muscle, right? Normally I have three separate ways I talk about helping people overcome everything that they have. There's generally, here's the way we deal with crisis in America. Most people go towards wanting the symptoms relieved. As a result, we end up with Vioxx, right? And that killed 100,000 people. And in spite of that killing people, people still want instantaneous relief. Or we have depression or anxiety, so we go for the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft. Or we want something that will help us with our crisis as long as it does not cause us to become too uncomfortable. Because what is it that we don't like to do? Change, not too much change. So it's easy to see in a nation that has valued comfort above all else and worked so hard to create a sense of comfort, and generally through a standard of living. You figure the better your standard of living, the more comfort you're going to have. Your house, your home, your car, your family, where you work. And then all of that goes out the window in the last 25 years because there is no security anymore that can be confirmed from birth to death. Everything changed. So now we wake up in the morning and we're just happy to get through a day dealing with our crisis. Many times our crisis is the pain that we feel, emotional pain, physical pain, and then we forget what's really important in life. So what I want to do is get you to where the life you should be living. I believe all of you deserve to be living a wonderful, beautiful, engaging life. So that brings me to the second stage, which means I can't give you the quick, instantaneous relief. There was a time when I would have tried.
Some of the dietary supplements that would really show the power of how important these things are in our lives would be certain supplements that boost immune function, like sambucol, things like N-acetylcysteine, glutathione, vitamin C.
We have the ability, through natural means, to get the overactive immune system back on track. Simple stuff. Vitamin A, vitamin C, bioflavonoids.
I mean, we have this huge body of research with the elderly that when you just give them simple antioxidants, their immune function is boosted.
The research that we know both in animals and in humans is that when you're mineral deficient, your health is impaired.
So there are just so many examples of the healing power of so many different dietary supplements.
But just taking a healthy protocol, I have found, is not enough. If it were enough, then 25 years ago, everyone should have been healthy, because this isn't new stuff. Wellness is not the absence of disease. We assume if we have no major disease, we're well. Well, my goodness, how many people actually know that they're sick? Very few. Did Bill Clinton know he was sick? He had the best doctors in the world, and they missed it, didn't they? Well, if the best doctors in the world, with all the latest technology in the world from every major medical hospital, including Walter Reed in Bethesda, if they didn't know it, that his arteries were occluding and he could drop dead like that, then what does it say for lesser mortals that don't have access to that? It says that never take your health for granted. It says that so many people are at home today assuming that because, well, they don't have a particular feeling about their heart or their liver or kidneys or their brain, that it's okay. And it's not. Everyone I've ever met in my life is processing disease.
One of the problems with the current state of health in America, or any place on Earth today, is that we're exposed to an enormous amount of environmental chemicals. We're exposed to chemicals in the food. Sometimes they're deliberately put there, such as pesticides or additives. Pollutants in the air we breathe from industrial contamination, and pollutants in the water that run off from agriculture or, again, from industry. And there's an enormous number of chemicals that are added into the environment. I've read estimates that there's something like 30,000 chemicals that have been added into the environment in the last 50 years that didn't exist previously.
So that brings me to this second point, and that is there is an answer for all disease. Yes. How to get healthy, and get healthy now. But we can't go to the first step and apply this and get healthy. Even if you did a holistic protocol, it's not enough. If everyone in this room went vegetarian, vegan, and took the vitamins, it would not be enough, and I'll explain that later. The second stage of this process is understand how it is that we get sick to begin with. I mean, wouldn't you think that in a country that's going to spend $2 trillion this year on disease, more per family than most people in all the rest of the world make per year? That's how much we spend just on disease per year.
The United States makes up less than 5% of the world's population. But in terms of the world's total bill for prescription drugs, the US makes up about half of it. So the cost of drugs and the number of prescription drugs being consumed by Americans is just through the roof.
Now, we have some pretty good medicine, and we need medicine, and we need good physicians, without which many people would die. Think of what happens when you need a bypass surgery, or you have something that's severed, you need reattached, or you've had a stroke. That's when medicine is exemplary. But to assume that because medicine is exemplary in some areas, that it should be for all areas, and that we should do nothing more than listen to our physician about what we should do about our health, is itself wrong. Because a part of this is to understand the truth, and the truth is, based upon a study, a review of all the scientific literature, using institutions' own statistic, the #1 cause of death in America is medicine.
Unfortunately, most of our media believes what they're told by FDA and the multiple press agents and press releases put out by pharmaceutical companies about their patent medications.
As currently configured, FDA is not able to adequately protect the American public. It's too invested in representing and protecting the interests of industry. It views industry as its client, and a client is someone whose interests you represent, and that unfortunately is the way FDA is structured now.
Americans are purchasing over $10 billion a year in nutritional supplements. That's a lot of money that's not going to drug companies, and I think they'd like to have control of it. I think a lot of it deals with that.
The Journal of the American Medical Association published a fascinating study revealing that 100,000 Americans die every year as a result of prescription medications.
So if the #1 cause of death is medicine, and the #1 cause of injury is medicine, in the last 10 years, that would equate to 7 million Americans dead and 190 million Americans injured, all preventative. They didn't have to die, they didn't have to be injured. Well, wouldn't you think that when you have something that big, that someone in Congress would say, let's take a look at what doesn't work and fix it? Wouldn't you think the AMA or other medical organizations would say, healing should be about helping people prevent disease, not just treat them, and it should be treating with the least toxic effects first, not the most toxic, not the most radical. And it should not be proprietary, but it is. So I took a look, and when I found out that so many things in medicine are not good for your health, and yet people have no option. They think, if I'm sick, the only answer I have is a medical model. It's not. And for a lot of reasons. In quick succession, the pharmaceutical industries control medicine. You may not think so, but look into any medical magazine, the Journal of the American Medical Association, the New England Journal of Medicine. Look at all of them. Who's their #1 advertiser? Pharmaceutical companies. How much of that advertising is actually accurate? Only a small percentage, meaning making claims that cannot be substantiated. Who tells your doctor what that medicine will do? A detail person. But when was the last time a detail person went in and apologized because the drugs they were convincing your doctor to use on you killed you or injured you?
There are a number of other scientists within FDA who have experienced similar things to what I've experienced, who have worked with drugs that they know are not safe, that FDA has gone on to approve, or that are unsafe and FDA allows them to remain on the market.
A major issue Americans confront today is the fact that the FDA acts to protect the financial interests of the pharmaceutical industry as opposed to the health of the American public.
The structural problems that exist at FDA, where the people who approve the drugs are also the ones who oversee the post-marketing regulation of the drugs, that remains unchanged.
The power of the large pharmaceutical companies is that they fund everything.
The people who approve a drug, when they see that there's a safety problem with it, are very reluctant to do anything about it because it will reflect badly on them, and so they continue to let the damage occur.
Prescription drugs, in other words, are killing 100,000 Americans every single year, and yet the FDA ignores that data.
When you have that many people getting sick and dying, then that is not the answer. Back in the 1970s, I took mice and I fed one group of mice. Every third day I fasted them, and they live longer. So I thought, that's interesting. It must be in the calories. So then I did something else. I created a wonderful environment. Instead of being in a little cage, I took a third-floor room that was used for storage, and I cleaned it all out, and I built ramps and pools and waterfalls and all kinds of interesting terrain, and every day I put their food in a different place, never in the same place twice. They were the same mice from the same litter that was kept in a regular cage downstairs. They were fed the same food, got the same amount of water, but the difference is they were in a challenging environment. And guess what happened? They lived 40% longer because the challenging environment. So that taught me something. It means that a passive existence is a constricted existence. I figure, all right, I got rats to live longer if I fast them. I get rats to live longer if I give them a challenging environment. So then I took 4 groups of rats. One I gave standard rat chow. These rats live a year. Another group I gave the standard American diet. It was actually the doctor's diet, because we interviewed some 400 doctors over a 2-month period at different hospitals and on the streets in New York, outside of Sloan Kettering, these other places, and we asked them, what's the kind of diet you recommend? We took down all those notes, went into the lab, made up all those foods, and fed it to the rats. For humanitarian reasons, because I am not a vivisectionist, I do not believe in the cruelty of animals, I had to stop that damn experiment in 6 months. The third group of rats, I gave a vegetarian diet, and then the last group of rats, I gave a living food diet with supplements. And the supplements were chlorophyll, rich chlorophyll. I didn't give them water. I gave them a chlorophyll drink made out of wheatgrass juice and celery and cucumber. Every day I'd throw in different vegetables, and that's what they drank. Well, those rats, of all the groups, those rats lived almost 44% longer.
And it turns out that less than 10% of Americans are getting the requirement for vitamin E if they're eating a regular diet.
Vitamin E, which is best known for and finally accepted for its help in heart disease, turns out to be extremely important in the repair of the serotonin-producing neurons.
I think most people would agree, from the government to researchers, just to where the funding's going, that vitamin E, some of its most exciting data is actually in urologic cancers. So we're talking about bladder cancer, kidney cancer, especially prostate cancer. Because we've seen from numerous trials, numerous observational studies, that people on these supplements or getting a high intake from diet or both, we're seeing a reduced risk of some of these cancers. And not only a reduced risk, but even if you've been diagnosed, a reduced chance of dying early from these cancers. And so one of the biggest funded trials, prevention trials in the history of medicine, is actually a trial called the SELECT trial. And it's a trial of vitamin E and selenium versus essentially placebo in 32,000 men. It's going to cost about $175 million. And that's one of our biggest, and that is a prostate cancer prevention trial. Let me tell you, nobody would put money like that into such a trial unless the background data looks so good.
So then I started saying, all right, now we have to use synergy, bring it all together. So I brought a creative environment with a living food diet and no stress and fasted, and they lived the longest of all. So then I tried it with a group of humans. I took a group of overweight people. To get into the study group, you had to be overweight for at least 2 years without results that were positive. You could lose weight, but you gained it back. Then what I did was simple. I gave one group of 100 people just exercise. They didn't have to change anything else, exercise. Another group of 100 people, they had to do stress management, meditation, yoga, journal writing, prayer, anything that would relax you, every day, twice a day. A third group, I gave them a vegetarian diet, very strict vegetarian diet, but a very good diet. The fourth group, I gave all the right supplements, all the conjugated linoleic acid, which helps burn fat, and glucomannan, and all the high fiber, and perfect. And the last group, the only thing I gave them was a challenge to your belief systems. Nothing about diet or exercise, stress management, or nutrients. The group that was exercising only, 96% failed. Couldn't stay with it. The group that had the diet, the perfect diet, 91% failed. The people that took the supplements, 88% failed. The people who were, and we're talking about 100 because there were 500 people that we wanted a specific group, and we were looking at diaries and everything else. And the group that was looking at stress management, over 90% failed. The group that was just working on belief systems, 94% success. Well, boy, does that teach you something. Everything's fine in theory, but put the theory to the test. Not only did they lose the weight, because they chose to. They chose then to exercise. They chose to meditate. They chose to do everything. So the last group, learning only about beliefs, changed everything, and that proved something I'd seen for a long time.
It's sort of like, and you take in the realm of just physical symptoms. Probably, I've had several internists that are friends of mine talk to me and said probably 80 to 90% of the people that come into my office with symptoms, they'll tell me, are probably have strong emotional factors behind it. They're not really physiologically caused illnesses. And I think that's probably true because most of us kind of think these things happen to us. And people are not recognizing that there's a real difference between seeing myself as a victim and not. You know, for example, take one person who starts to get a sore throat and they have the sniffles. And one person would say, gee, I know I've been overworked lately. I need to get some more rest. I'm going to go home and get a good night's rest tonight. I'm going to drink a lot of liquid, maybe take some vitamin C or whatever else they might do, some cider vinegar and honey, and I'm sure I'll be fine tomorrow. And they are. And then you have another person with the same symptoms, and you'll hear them say, God, here comes one of those colds. I know it's going to be a doozy. You know, they just tend to wipe me out forever. And sure enough, it does. And so in a sense, we make that kind of pronouncement about ourselves.
I then said, all right, let's take a look at, is there evidence there that a healthy lifestyle is scientifically based? Yes, it is. The studies are there. And then why aren't we learning about how to be healthy? Because science proves alternative healing and health and prevention works. Proves it tremendously. But between good science and your health is medicine.
The medical community is very rigid in its formula for what to believe. Very rigid.
Traditionally, most doctors tend to practice what they learned in medical school, and they don't tend to think outside what they've been taught.
Unfortunately, most medical schools still haven't really developed a decent integrative health curriculum. I think there are schools that are trying, but I think they fall short. You're asking the conservative medical industry to then teach medical students about an area they're really not that familiar with.
I think the change has to come from the top with a re-education campaign aimed at orthodox physicians, teaching that nutrition can be very beneficial in their practice, that it can help patients, even cancer patients, reverse their disease.
Even the nutrition class I took in medical school was, they did not mention the word food in the whole class.
And medicine has acted as the grand teachers of all things healthy, and they have no training in health.
At a medical meeting on diabetes the other night, the dinner was a greasy steak followed by lots of sugary desserts, and the whole presentation was on taking drugs for your diabetes.
So unfortunately, instead of going to a person who knows about health to learn about health, we go to a doctor, and a doctor teaches about medicine, something they do know, are highly trained in, sometimes successful, but with that many casualties, that many injuries, not always successful. And then we stop our search. And if we search beyond that, we're considered pseudoscientific. So then my question was, how are we going to get people healthy? And that's where our journey begins. Don't look where you're not going to get healthy. Symptomatic relief is not health. Because if you're not changing what's causing your arthritis, depression, heart disease, high blood pressure, if you're not changing what's causing excess calories in the body, then you're just going to come right back to where you were in time, right? What is missing to keep Americans from being healthy? We are not looking at the real cause. And here's the problem. We can't. You're not going to be told the real cause of disease. Why? Because to be told the real cause of disease, you'd have to put about $100 billion every 2 months away as if nobody could earn it. The meat industry would have to close down. The dairy industry closed down. The sugar industry closed down. But wait a second. That adds up to almost $500 billion a year. Yes, it does. And that doesn't include how much is spent on disease caused by this. Watch every Saturday morning on children's television. 99% of the commercials are for things, if they're for food things, that are destructive to your child's well-being.
Television commercials promote an unhealthy lifestyle. Fast food restaurants, companies that sell very profitable but dangerous foods, extensively advertise.
The media also forces children to want to eat junk food. The advertisement for fast food, for food loaded with sugars and carbohydrates is enormous.
So you feed them sugar and then you sedate them. It's terrible.
There is this big disconnect between what scientists know in their research laboratories about the causes of cancer and disease and what the public hears from the television set and what the public gets from the drug companies. These are very poor substitutes for education. They are actually miseducation. And to me, it is a very important point that we must stand up and start to recognize that we have to get truths from people that are not involved, such as drug companies, because their education is basically to support their business.
So is it the media going to be honest and say, look, we're sorry, we've been allowing ourselves to be exploited for years, and as a result, we've given you misinformation? No, they're not going to do that. No one's going to turn off the money coming to them. So what do we do then? Could we actually prevent heart disease, arthritis? We could prevent 90% of all disease if we simply made changes in our lifestyle. 90%.
You take high blood pressure, you take a rapid pulse, a regular heart, you take even a weight gain. It's all is very frequently related to stress.
If the average one of us would fix his or her diet to eat almost entirely natural foods, we all mess up every once in a while, but almost entirely natural foods, no sugar, no refined food, and add to that a very good quality multiple vitamin mineral. I don't mean what's sold over the counter with the over-the-counter meds. I mean a good quality vitamin mineral with some vitamin C and some vitamin E. Just those simple steps would improve health and increase longevity for most of us.
That means that instead of spending $2 trillion, we could spend a couple $100 million. That's something to think about. That's doable. But standing between the integrity and the ethics of reversing disease are all the financial interest. Is anyone going to be honest about that? They can't afford to be honest. Once you accept money from someone, you are connected to what you gave away, integrity. And everything in life is an exchange. Everything is an exchange.
Drug companies tend to grant enormous campaign contributions to virtually all members of Congress, to various presidential candidates. It doesn't really matter what party gets into office, they've all been heavily subsidized by drug money. And that enables the drug companies to get their way in Congress.
Hope you've enjoyed this installment, and I'll see you next week when we continue with this series. I'm Gary Null. Have a good week.